In the Western Roman Empire, the Praetorian Guard was responsible for the protection of the emperor. However, many times it undermined the emperor's authority itself and even went as far as appointing emperors. In the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantine emperors had learned from the mistakes of the West. They knew that throne contenders targeted their personal guard in order to remove them and ascend to the throne themselves. A characteristic example is the assassination of Emperor Nicephorus II Phocas in 976. His wife, Theophano, conspired with her lover, John Zimisces, to kill the emperor in December of the same year. The murderers entered the palace wearing women's clothes under which they hid their weapons. That night, Empress Theophano found an excuse to dismiss the emperor's guard from the entrance of his chamber. When the assassins entered the imperial chamber, they found the bed empty and feared that the emperor had realized their intentions. However, to their surprise, they saw that the emperor was sleeping on the floor, in the corner of the room, as he was accustomed during military campaigns. They attacked him and killed him before he could react. Emperor Basil II, being distrustful of the Byzantine guards, whose loyalty often changed with fatal consequences, led the emperor to hire mercenaries for his personal guard. In 988, after the Christianization of the Rus by Vladimir I of Kiev, 6,000 men were sent to the emperor as part of a military assistance agreement. These men were called Varangians and came from northern regions such as Scandinavia and present-day Denmark. They were the so-called Vikings. This unit, consisting of Vikings, was famous for the ferocity of its members and their thirst for blood during battle, in which they used their fearsome double-headed axes with devastating results. The Varangians were as terrifying to the enemies of Byzantium as tanks were to infantry in World War I. A famous member was Harald Hardrada, later King of Norway, who died in the Battle of Stamford Bridge. The Varangians were not just a decorative guard, but also participated in battles as an elite force. Examples include the Battle of Varia, Dyrrhachium, and the Battle of Manzikert. In the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, while the Roman army had collapsed, the Byzantine emperor remained alone on the battlefield with his imperial guard. The Varangians, with their shields, protected the emperor and continued to fight fiercely. As time passed, they all fell dead, while the emperor, Romanos IV Diogenes, was captured, heavily wounded in the chest and hand. Composed primarily of Scandinavians for the first 100 years, the Guard began to see increasing numbers of Anglo-Saxons after the successful invasion of England by the Normans. In 1088, a large number of Anglo-Saxons emigrated to the Byzantine Empire by way of the Mediterranean. One source has more than 5,000 of them, arriving in 235 ships. Those who did not enter imperial service settled on the Black Sea coast, building and garrisoning the town of Civito. The Varangians were tough warriors who struck terror into their opponents. They were also known for their love of alcohol. The Byzantines considered them barbarians, but recognized them as the most loyal soldiers of the emperor. In battles fought alongside them, they did not flinch and fought with self-sacrifice to the end. Also, they were considered just and honest in their dealings, as the Varangians, besides being soldiers, engaged in commercial activities between the Byzantine Empire and their homelands in the north. When a Varangian had amassed enough wealth, they would usually return home. There, they would recount their legendary stories of Constantinople's riches, its art, and architectural wonders, like the Hagia Sophia. These tales often inspired others to embark on their own journey to the new Rome, Constantinople. An event that took place in 1034 cemented the image of Varangians in the eyes of the Byzantines. According to the text of John Skylitzes, in 1034, some Varangians had been stationed in the theme of Thrace, which included the western coast of Asia Minor, to winter there. One of them encountered a local woman in a remote area. The Varangian approached the woman romantically, but she rejected him. Then he attempted to rape her. However, the woman grabbed his sword and struck him. As she struck him in the heart, his death was instantaneous. When the deed became known in the surrounding area, the Varangians held a meeting and honored the woman, offering her all the possessions of the would-be rapist, whom they threw aside unburied. In the miniature, the companions of the deceased honor the woman by giving her the cloaks that belonged to him. It appears that these were not simply his personal clothing, but expensive garments, perhaps even silk, which the deceased intended to trade in northern Europe. The Varangian Guard served the emperors of Byzantium for 5 centuries. They were present at the sack of Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade in 1204, fighting to defend the city from the Crusaders. The last references we have to the Varangian Guard are from as recently as the 14th century, although by then their presence was in small numbers and mainly consisted of Anglo-Saxons. If you liked my video, consider subscribing. See you in the next one.